Welcome, Gemma.
Hi.
Thanks for coming along and talking to us. Just for the viewers at home and those listening, do you want to just give us an introduction to yourself?
Sure. So, hi, I am Gemma. I am the current leader of the Northern Affinity. We're a small micro business community that's really founded in support and belonging and just finding the people that are there to help you along your journey.
Okay. How did you get into that?
Great question. So the Northern Affinity was not founded by me. It was actually founded by my husband.
Okay.
And it started probably about maybe around 4 years ago. So my husband, Mike, he'd been running the Northern Affinity, got it from the ground up, started to build this really amazing community. And in another world, I'm actually a copywriter, do lots of stuff on voice and messaging, and I actually have another business. And I was going to come in and do like a project really to work on the Northern Affinity and get some of the things going that I think it needed for it to grow into its next steps.
Okay.
And that started, and I have a business partner in my other business, and we'd agreed that I was going to have a couple of months off so that I could really focus on the Northern Affinity and treat it like a client because, husband, and it kept sort of falling to the bottom of the pile.
Crossing lines.
Yeah, so I was like, do you know what? I just need this to be the only thing that I do for a couple of months so I can get that all sorted. And once I started on that project, I was sitting like I was looking at all the things I was meant to be doing. And I'm like, actually, we're not here yet. I can't do this work yet because there's other things that need to be done. There was other things in systems and processes that only need to be realigned to be able to help it grow. And I just sort of said, I'm not sure really this work I was doing is going to be right anymore. And I think it might maybe take longer than we think. And I had this conversation with Mike, and he just said, yeah, maybe I'm not the best person to move this forward anymore. Maybe
So you went,
yeah, he was like,
do
it
it.
feels like an issue, not an issue. Me. I'm like, okay. So we did. So it came to me. I had a chat with Helen, my business partner, and I was like, right, we're in this situation. What are your thoughts? Is this something that you think we can do? And she was like, yes, absolutely. And I know that like the people in the Northern Affinity community, like it is really well loved. And I think a lot of people would have been loath to see it go and not grow. So, so I took it on. Here we are. I've left my other business in Helen's capable hands.
So you don't work with the other business now?
I do. So because there's lots to be done in the Northern Affinity, it's very much needs my full attention. And running a business, there's so much in your head. And Helen and I had the chat around how are we going to divide this up, because Helen is also now like involved in the Northern Affinity as well, but she takes more of a background role in that at the moment because she is leading So Contented. So it's less about the work that we do and more about the headspace and the ability to think and focus on one thing. So we made the decision that I would lead the Northern Affinity, and when I need help, I'll say, right, Helen, this is what I need, this is where it's going, this is how I need you back up. And she does the same with me with So Contented. So she's very much there leading that business. So it's not in my head and taking my headspace. So we both have a focus, which is really good. But when you need each other's skills to come in and help. So I do still work on some projects in So Contented. We do lots of stuff in brand voice, and that's kind of my thing. So that Helen will pull me in onto those projects.
It's been really good to have somebody to fall back on and to bounce ideas off, and someone you've worked with quite closely as well already to be able to pick this up and then trust her to take over the other and lead on that.
100%. Could not have done it without Helen. I don't think I could not have run both businesses, certainly not at this point in the stage at which both businesses are at. So Contented is, it's a service. We sell time for money. So that does require lots of thinking from an operational perspective, but then again, on how we grow that and recruitment, bringing staff in, all that kind of stuff. So, there's lots to think about there. And then, of course, Northern Affinity, I've had massive decision fatigue on like bringing in new systems and things that we're using. And I must say, it is something that has, over the years, grown and grown, that realisation of what a difference it's made having a business partner.
Yeah.
Even when Northern Affinity wasn't in the picture for Helen and I, and it was just both of us running So Contented together when we founded that, the difference that made, having somebody else there, having somebody else to talk things through, different ideas. Helen and I are very similar in many ways, but very different in many ways as well. And I think we've tempered each other over the years too. So I can be quite, I don't want to use the word cavalier, but maybe maybe I should. 100%. I'm just like, I make a decision, I'm like, let's do it, go. Whereas Helen is more, let's think this through, what might go wrong, should we do this now? And of course, both have the merits in business. Sometimes you need to make fast decisions.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to think on things and weigh up the risks. And we tend to find that I'll be like, let's do it now. And Helen will be like, let's do it in 3 years. And then we'll have a nice like meet in the middle somewhere, and we end up with like a really sensible path forward then, I think. So I think that's why that's worked well.
What advice would you give to somebody who's just starting off then? Would you recommend they reach out and get a partner, or would you, how would you parcel that packet, that advice up to somebody?
Yeah, so I found my business partner very organically. It was, we were friends, we knew each other originally when we were both having our first, well, my only, but her first child. So that was how we met.
Okay.
And it was very much it was almost like a light-hearted joke of, oh, we should definitely start a business. Oh, what would we do? Oh, we would be writers, definitely. It was that kind of. And then the way that things fell for me, in my job at the time, I'd been off on maternity leave, I'd come back in, a competitor had opened up, loads of the staff were leaving, I was ready for my next promotion or my next thing, and I knew that wasn't going to happen anytime soon. They were looking for more experienced staff. The industry wanted, they have really long non-compete clauses and things, so I knew I was going to be months, if not a year or more, before I could start to move on. It's like, do you know what? Now's the time. I quit. So I handed my notice in, rang Helen and said, oh, can you remember when we joked about starting a business?
So that's the cavalier side of you coming out.
Do you want it? Yeah. She was, at this point, she was like 9 months pregnant with a second child. She's like, what? Do I want to what? But, we did, and we did it. So that was how I found my business partner. It was very much an accidental, and then let's just go for it. And she was, luckily all on board, and here we are. I think probably how to find a business partner with that purpose, in honesty, I'm not really sure how you would do that and where you would go about that. I think something Helen and I got right is that our vision of the end game is very similar.
Yeah.
The things that matter to us are very similar.
Yeah.
So even as personalities, even though we're quite different,
your values are aligned.
Yeah, and where we never argue or debate really is that end goal of where we see our business is going.
Yeah, it's more how you get there.
Exactly. And often it's less about how we get there, more about how fast we get there and how fast we make decisions. So I think that's probably a really interesting and key thing to look for if you're looking for a business partner, is to find somebody that you do gel really well with, because you do spend a lot of time with people. I think you definitely need somebody that you can be really honest with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Helen and I, we call each other out on things because you have to. Like, nobody's perfect.
Well, it's a huge impact if you don't, isn't it, right?
And things just stew. If you just let things bubble under the surface, I think you have to, if something is hacking you off, you need to be able to say.
Yeah.
If you need somebody to pull the finger out, you need to be able to say. And we do have that relationship, and I think that really helps as well when you're trying to run a business together, that I can be like, come on now, mate, let's just do this. And, and we do.
And I guess with that as well, you've got to have like that motivation and energy level to keep driving it and keep going at it, because it's not something you can just do overnight.
No.
So, and also just going back a little bit, not to call you like absolutely crazy, but had you not just had a child, is that right? And then you decided to give up your job with a relatively newborn, I'm assuming, and then decide to just throw everything, caution to the wind, and go after a business. Is that not a little bit crazy?
Well, so it's maybe not as bad as that quite sounds, because it was actually about, oh, I'm not sure it's much better, really. It was...
To all the mothers out there, you listen carefully.
It was about 18 months at the time, because I had maternity leave for a year, and then I had actually lined up a career break for a year as well. So my initial intention was I'm going to be off for 2 years before I come back to work. That drove me crackers.
Yeah, I can imagine, yeah.
And I really miss work. And actually, I had a very corporate job, if I'm honest. And I know for a lot of people that corporate world doesn't work. I loved a lot of it.
Okay.
I was quite happy in that environment. I loved the people that I worked with. My team was amazing. We had such fun together, even though we were in a real corporate environment. But the thing that often frustrated me was the pace at which things were done. I would go into a new job, so I would get a promotion or whatever it may be, and I would, on the day that I'd got it, I would be looking for my next thing. I would be immediately planning where I was going to go next. And they very much wanted you to be in a job for many years, really. And this was where part of the problem came with when I was coming and looking for promotions and things. It felt like everything was really slow. I'll be like, I want to do an amazing job for a year and then move on to the next thing. And they were more like, we want you to do it for 2 or 3. And yeah, so it was very much that pace for me that made me think, oh, I'm not sure if this is the right environment for me. And then that final nail in the coffin was, I'd done my job for a couple of years before I'd gone on maternity leave. When I came back in, actually nothing had changed. The role was still the same, the systems were still the same. Like there was nothing to relearn. And then once I realised that as people were leaving and they were going to be recruiting for experience, and that promotion was off the cards for me, and I was like, my options are I stay where I am and I stay doing the same job for another probably a year, or I sidestep to another company, but because it's a sidestep, the chances are, again, you're probably not going to move in at a high level. It probably is a sidestep, and then I've got to do it again.
Yeah.
So I'm like, end result is I'm still going to do the same thing. So it just didn't go fast enough for me. So that was my decision making, really. That I was like, I need something that I can do at my pace. Sometimes, much to Helen's despair, breakneck speed.
Sometimes it's got to be done.
Exactly. And sometimes it does work out really well. Not all the time, but often I find, I think sometimes Helen is a bit like, oh my God, you want to do what and when? Can we not wait? But yeah, it's that pace, I think, that led me to think, regardless of my other situation, I'm just going to bite the bullet here and I'm going to do it. And I knew, because it was something that Helen and I kind of discussed, I thought, do you know what? I'll see if she's in. Why the heck not?
Yeah.
And luckily, she was.
And here we are.
It actually worked out really well with all the timings in the end. So
great. So
did it seem like an absolutely bonkers decision to leave a job with a toddler, start a business, from nothing? We were completely changing in sectors, and this was not a sector that I had any experience in. We've never worked for marketing agencies. So it did seem a bit wild to do that.
Yeah.
But actually, for me, I don't think there's ever a good time. I think if you wait for the right moment, the right moment never comes. Life just keeps happening around you. There's always a reason to not do it. So I think if it's something that you want to do, why wait? Just do it. Tomorrow's not a promise, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Go for it.
And I think there's probably a lot of women out there who go on maternity leave, have a child, and then they start to have a bit of a realization about thinking about making life choices, changes in their life, because they now have a young person in their life that they probably want to be a bit more flexible around. And sometimes your previous job didn't give you that flexibility. So there's probably a lot of women who would have ideas about doing something that gives them more flexibility, starting a business, but have a child. And what advice would you give to those women, and how do you get the balance right?
Great question. Balance is always difficult. I think as a parent, and certainly as a mother, you get a lot of guilt from different directions of, oh, you're working, you've got a child. Oh, you're not working, and you're setting that example for your child. You know, like there's just no right way. Like, you do what you've got to do. Like, you do what is right. I think there's so much judgment around parenting, particularly for mothers.
Yeah.
And what you choose to do for your career. Running a business is not easy. It has very different challenges in terms of, I think, headspace is the big thing. So I think as a parent, sometimes I am a lot less present mentally than I would like to be, even though I can be more physically present and I can do more of the practical things. My head can often be elsewhere because I'm running a business. It's not like when you have an employed role and you can finish that job at the end of the day and put it away and it's gone.
Somebody else's responsibility.
Exactly. Or you just don't need to think about it till the next day. I think that is much harder, not impossible, but much harder when you run your own business. You get into that headspace, I think, of stuff pops into your head, ideas, the lightning strikes, that kind of thing. I do also think I mean, let's be honest, childcare is very poor, does not fit the way the modern world works.
No, and it's cheap.
It's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. And it does not get easier once you get to school.
Yeah.
Because school days are quite short, school holidays are long. So even
your day then becomes defined by the school hours, right?
100%. So even the education system, once you get past that early years childcare, once you get into education, it's the same thing. It's the challenges of the logistics. It's just not geared up towards the modern working world. So that's another big challenge. And I think, you know, as a mother, again, in a workplace, you often come up against some very bizarre attitudes. People treat you like you've had some sort of lobotomy when you're like, no, I've had a child. I'm not suddenly less capable of existing or doing this job. People say like, oh, people, you know, mothers are less dedicated. And it's like, well, no, I don't not want to do well in career and in life because I've had a child. It's just, I think maybe just your tolerance for the absolute nonsense that can be around you.
You just cut straight through it.
You're just at rock bottom then, aren't you? It's like, do you know what? No, I'm not putting up with this. So I think there's maybe a shift in attitude in that perspective. But I do think that is another challenge for women in the workplace. And the other thing that often I found as a woman starting a business, no, let me rephrase that, as a mother starting a business, was people would assume I have started a business because I have had a child, which actually was probably more true for my husband than it was for me.
Okay, yeah.
I think he was very much in that zone of I would like something that's really flexible so I can be around a lot. My worst nightmare is that school run.
Yeah.
Oh my days. I did not start a business to be able to pick my child up from school. I can, and I have to. That's the rules apparently. Can't leave them there. I did check. But that was not my reason for starting a business. It was because I wanted something that was on my terms that I could move forward with quickly and at pace, and something where I could find the thing I loved and I could work with people that I loved, and, you know, like bringing it more under my control and less about I'm a mother and I've got no choice. The truth is, as a mother, you should be able to have choice. You should be able to stay in employment places, should be able to offer some level of flexibility that allows you to work around an education system we have no choice over.
No, absolutely. I think in this day and age, when you hear about still the preconceptions of new mothers and decisions women are making is based on having a child and stuff like that, it's still so old-fashioned.
Yeah.
And we're like 2024 now, and there's still these barriers and challenges that women are having to go through. And I think you still see it in industries now as to why, there's very limited, extremely like senior director level of women in business. It's such a shame.
It is.
Really, that, because, if we just get a little bit more flexible on how we all work, it would just be so much better for everyone.
Absolutely.
And I think the pandemic actually showed how flexible people can actually be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something we should really like hold on to.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I agree. I think we don't want to be in a position where women have to start a business to give themselves some level of flexibility for looking after children. It should be because you want to start a business, because you have a passion, because you've got a thing that you love, not because you've got no other choice.
Because you can bring value to somebody else and something that you can do.
Absolutely.
So going back to Northern Affinity, so just tell me a little bit more about what Northern Affinity does and who they are.
Sure. So we typically work with and support, I would describe as micro businesses, businesses with either one person that does all the things, or a few employees. But I would say there's, thinking about who's in the community, maybe probably like no more than 10. We are very much in that micro business arena. And I think the reason for that is because a lot of what we offer and what we do is around like belonging and support and community, and running a business is really hard, right? So I think it's harder for people who do that alone, or at least feel like they do it alone. I think that's kind of the secret, isn't it? You think when you run your own business, here I am on my own, that's impossible.
Yes.
So on the whole, it's people who will have one person that is making lots of decisions and feel like there's not somebody else that they can necessarily within the business speak to, and feel like they've got lots of people around them with lots of different experience and expertise to move them forward.
Yeah.
The bigger the business is, the easier that is to find.
Yeah.
So I think it is quite a unique challenge really for businesses on the smaller end of the scale. And we connect these people, bring people together. I am a huge believer in being a part of something and the impact that has on people. I think just feeling like there are other people around you when you've got that moment of, oh my God, what do I do with this thing that's happening right now? The chances are whatever is going on for you, you are not the first person that has happened to, and nor are you the last person that this will happen to. And just knowing that you have 10 people that you can ring and will pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm having this issue right now. I've got this challenge. I don't know what to do. Has this happened to you? What did you do about it? So we very much facilitate that. It's almost like it's like friends, like business friends. It sounds very like,
Absolutely.
But that's really what it is. It's people that you feel really comfortable with, that you can be really vulnerable and honest with, and also that you can help too. That's something that I find lots of people in the community say. They love the part of the thing that not only that they get something from it, that they can give back to it, they can help, which is really lovely. So it just attracts really, really fantastic people. And the way that we bring people together is typically with in-person events. We do some other things as well. We do have like an online platform so that we can keep conversations going. But there is so much science behind what happens when you get people physically together in a room, when people have strong social connections of people that they are physically with, the impact that has on your health. I think being a business owner does take a toll on mental health. And I think some of the things we think around when we think about loneliness and feeling like you're on your own and no one quite understands you. Lots of business owners, a lot of the friends are employed. And while you can talk to people, it's not always on a level where you think they really get it.
Yeah.
And the mental health implications of that, I think, are quite obvious, but the physical implications of not having really strong social connections are absolutely wild. Like studies have shown that if you don't have strong social connections, that's as bad for you physically as alcoholism, as bad for you physically as smoking. I think it's something like 16 cigarettes a day. As bad for you physically, twice as bad for you physically as chronic obesity. Like, we're literally hardwired to be together. I think a lot of the problem now comes from people only meet online, people only interact through social media. They're very superficial connections. The number of people who say they feel like they have somebody they can confide in, they can talk to, like, that's going down, that number is getting lower. People feel more and more disconnected. So I think this kind of thing where we're bringing people together who are alike in many ways, but also bring lots of different experience is so important, especially when you're doing something that is so mentally demanding.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with a lot of people starting off their business and stuff like that, they feel like they've got to go out and network, and it's that dreaded word, network. I mean, makes me shudder. The thought of feeling as if I have to go into a room with a lot of strangers and be really extrovert in order to sell myself and be accepted and then get as many business cards out, and makes me cringe. And that's just not my style. It's not my thing. I talk to people. I'm sociable, but I'm sociable with people who are naturally sociable. I don't want somebody coming to talk to me purely because they've got a motive to sell me something or to network for the sake of a connection. That's not what I'm about. I prefer to establish connections that are real and natural. So for anyone starting a business and they think they've got a network, what advice would you give them on that?
There are lots of different types of networks. So in my years of running businesses, I have found that different networks can sometimes serve different purposes. Arguably, I would say that the Northern Affinity in many ways is not really what you would describe as traditional networking, because it is more of that support community, which I think is really important to have. I think you tend to, when you were talking there about going into a room and you know, people talk, I still hear people giving that advice. Even now in 2024, I still hear people giving that advice of find a massive event, go in, take a load of cards, give out as many as you can, arrange to meet people afterwards, but just get around the room as quickly as possible. I don't know about you, but I would immediately forget the person that dashes over to me, says, oh, hi, I do this. What do you do? Amazing. Here's my card. Let's go meet for a coffee sometime. Bye. I'm never going to ring that person and say, let's go meet up for a chat. Absolutely not.
Hell no.
And I think some people treat networking as more like broadcasting. I've got to get out to as many people as possible, and I've got to pitch myself to as many people as possible.
Yeah.
And you know what? There are networks where, like, I think that sort of works and sort of serves a purpose, but it can't be the only thing that you do. I think that's the mistake that people make, is they just spend time doing what they think they're supposed to be doing in that very traditional networking of going around and pitching their services. Interesting story, actually. We did have somebody who was in the Northern Affinity community and left, and they sent a really lovely email to leave. And strangely, I would say the email was kind of a testimonial, because I was like, oh, actually, here is my failing, because I think the point of this community has maybe not come across properly.
Okay.
And the person has said, I've really enjoyed being part of the community. I've really enjoyed the events. I've met really good people who I've had lots of support from. In fact, some have even become like suppliers and people who I'm working alongside. But my clients aren't in the room, so I don't think that this is for me.
Okay.
And that, for me, is that those are the things that were said around, I've found people that I can rely on and that have supported me in my business. And, you know, even in some of those sectors, it sounds like, they've even paid for that support. So business has been done. And people do work and collaborate on projects, and people do get business from it. But it's not the point of it, actually. The point is how you grow with the expertise and the people you have around you, and how, therefore, you end up winning and growing work from other places. So that I think is probably a really clear difference for me between having a community of support and what you expect to get from that and how that works, and having a referrals network, which is something different. Like in a no, I mean, obviously we do refer work to each other because we become friends, right? But having a more the style of where it's an expectation that you will refer somebody because they're in the networking group with you, or that you're going to go into a room full of clients who you want to work with and just go around and pitch to those people. And they're totally different things.
Absolutely. And I don't know about you, but I would not refer somebody that I know that's come to me and asked for a service, but I can't provide that service. I would not refer them to somebody that I've met at a networking event if I have not built a relationship with them, if I don't trust them. And so I don't know how these networking things actually can be, sustainable. And I'm sure there must be people who get referred on and then get a really poor service. And then that's your personal brand that's damaged then, because they're not going to come to you and ask for you, oh, they weren't very good. Who do you recommend now then? It's just that's damage to your brand. So I've got to trust the person before I pass a referral on.
Yeah.
To be fair.
100%. And I think the other thing that you get when you've built really good relationships with somebody is it's less of a referral and more of a collaboration.
Yeah.
It's more about, this is my client or friend and I'm working on this project with them and now I need to bring in an expert to do this part of this project. And then you can work together with those people rather than it being something that's, disjointed and you don't really know the person and they're sort of operating separately. I think there's a lot more cohesion between small businesses who are real experts trying to work together to an end result when you all have a really good, solid relationship.
Yeah, and I think for small businesses, they don't have the HR departments or the marketing departments or, it depends on what you do as a specialism. You don't have the departments to give you that advice and strategies and things like that. So to be in part of a group of people who have these backgrounds, it's just a great way of bouncing ideas and getting some advice.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, well, before we go, Gemma, do you want to just tell people how they can find Northern Affinity?
Sure. So we are, obviously the website is under construction.
What would the website be when they look for it?
Well, should you look for it, you will find a landing page that says the website is under construction. So you can find us loosely at thenorthernaffinity.co.uk, and that will have links to other things for you if you want to have a look at more of what we do. But, search for the Northern Affinity on LinkedIn and we're on there. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. I'm at Gem Edwards, I think. Find somebody called Gemma Edwards and connect with her. She would love to speak to you, I'm sure. That's.
And the last thing, just before you go, what one tip or one word of advice would you give to somebody wanting to start their own business?
Done is better than perfect. So it will never be right. It will never be ideal. It is a constant work in progress. Both of the businesses I'm working on right now are several years in, and there is still loads to do, and there is still work to be done. And sometimes you just need to go for it and not worry about having things exactly right, because business is an evolution, not a revolution. You just got to keep moving forward, keep trying things, see what works. Don't be afraid to get things wrong, because you will. But the faster you get something wrong, the faster you can get it right and move on to the next thing.
Great. Well, thanks for coming, Gemma.
Thanks so much for having me.
To chat with you.